I want to also talk about something on the other side of this consideration, where we're talking about the economics of what you need around the quarterback. Because when I look at this class, obviously Baker Mayfield was the number overall pick. I'm just thinking about it this week. It's like, what can we learn from the Baker experience? So what can we take away from this? And at first glance, I think it's tempting to say, oh, what a disaster this was. That he was a failure. He went number one. And I don't really think that's a fair way to categorize the Baker Mayfield experience in Cleveland. I think the best way to talk about it is on the flip side of this, where if you're the Browns, you had to put so much around Baker Mayfield for him to be successful. You needed arguably the best offensive line in the league for stretches of the last couple of years. You needed the best running game in the league. You needed to spend a lot on receivers. I mean, think about how much they invested in Jarvis Landry and Odell Beckham when Austin Hooper came there in free agency. They used that rookie contract to really build up the rest of that group. And in stretches, they had success. Baker was good enough to win with for stretches of his rookie contract. And I think it's important to remember that. But at the end of all of this, the Browns came to the conclusion that when that rookie contract was running out and when they were going to have to think about the second contract phase of the Baker Mayfield experience, they understood they couldn't afford the rest of that offense while they were paying Baker Mayfield. And they decided to try to upgrade to a much better quarterback. The way that they did it leaves a lot to be desired in the quarterback that they went after. But the thought process, I think, is instructive for how we think about quarterbacks on the rookie scale and in the modern NFL when you take them in the first round. Like what they are on the rookie deal and what they are on the first deal and what I can build around them is very different from the considerations on deal 2.
100%. And that's the difference between your Josh Allens. That's the difference between your Patrick Mahomeses. And we assign so much animus to the number one overall pick in general, but certainly the number one overall pick at that position in that particular city at that particular period of time, right? When I don't think the Browns, outside of Hugh Jackson never talking to Lincoln Riley and never pulling anything from his offense, and then Freddie Kitchens taking over and just being like, yeah, why don't you just run that? But then stopping that, and there was some odd stop starts there. Kevin Stefanski ended up being the right guy for him. I think they maximized what they could have gotten out of Baker Mayfield. And so in that way, I don't think it's really a failure. Sure, Josh Allen ended up being the better player, but you also didn't have the people there that would have made Josh Allen into Josh Allen anyway. I don't think you had the school of thought. I don't think you had the right mindset there. And so you were prepared for Baker. You eventually got him to whatever his equivalent of the mountaintop was, beating the Steelers in that playoff game, even though there was a comedy of errors that led to that victory that had nothing to do with the offense. And then, yeah, you move on. I think that's generally smart football, right? And taking the Band-Aid off is instructive because it I think it just loosens the grip on the finality of these picks. Like, look at what's happening in San Francisco right now. Like, no one is slaying Kyle Shanahan for taking a chance,
Yeah.
I'm not. I don't think it was a bad thing. And
I think there's such an interesting test case, though, because that failure, it only matters less because of everything else around them. And so the argument in the moment, and I was totally standing by the argument in the moment, is that, yeah, you can win with Jimmy Garoppolo. You've shown an ability to win with that sort of guy. If you want to draft Mac Jones and just drop him in and have him be a cog in the machine, that's totally fine. But then you're relying on the excellence of the machine year in and year out. And eventually the component parts of that machine are going to be harder to retain. It's going to be harder to keep the quality of that high year after year after year. But they've done that. They missed on the quarterback and they've still done that. I just think that betting on that range of outcomes and threading that needle, that's a fool's errand. I think learning something from the Niners experience is a dangerous thing for other teams thinking about the way they want to build.
Here's how, and I promise I won't go too divergent on this topic, but here's the wildest thing about that to me was, at least from my understanding, the impetus behind the Trey Lance pick was that, and now we're at the point where I would say somewhat conservatively, like 40% of the NFL is running a version of Kyle's offense, or a version that's highly influenced by Kyle's offense. And their thought, and none of them have mobile quarterbacks, which is interesting, or mobile as Trey Lance can be.
Yes.
Right? And so the theory behind that pick was, wait until I introduce another guy into this, and another active runner into this. And I think in Kyle's mind, he always thought like at some point someone's going to catch up to what I'm doing.
Yes.
And the wild part is like no one has caught up. Like, they've been, like he's still like, oh, okay, I can just still get away with this with Brock Purdy.
Well, he's found another stage of the evolution. It's just different.
Yes.
The McCaffrey introduction and what that offense looks like becomes the next stage of it rather than the Trey Lance stage of it. So I think they have managed to stay a step ahead. It's just not the version they thought they were going to have to use to stay a step ahead.
Yeah, I think that's fair. And I just don't know if he thought that it would be as easy as trading for a running back. You know what I mean? But and granted, he's a running back outlier, and he's also a receiver. He does a lot for that offense. But I thought we would have seen this offense by and large be blanket contained by now.
I was talking to a head coach at the combine, and we were talking about quarterbacks and the most valuable quarterbacks that you can have, and we were ranking them, right? So the most valuable quarterback that you can have is a blue chip quarterback on a rookie deal, obviously, right? Like it's Mahomes on a rookie contract. The second most valuable quarterback that you can have is an elite quarterback on whatever contract that he's on. The third most valuable quarterback is a capable quarterback on a rookie deal, and then you get to a fine quarterback on a veteran extension. So your Daniel Joneses, Derek Carrs, whoever in that group. So hunting for the guy at those top two things, even if you eventually have to pay him, the advantage that creates for you is so incredibly big that these home run swings during the course of the rookie contract, and then when you eventually have to extend that guy, that value is still going to be there even after you have to pay him.